My late friend John Roper tells the story of his seminary days in southeastern up in North Carolina. Said one of the preacher boys was called to go and supply at a small rural church in rural North Carolina. The young preacher boy got there and said he stood there in the churchyard for a little while and people began to gather, and as they gathered it was a story of country come to town for sure. Said they got up to sing, and the choir director said, "All right, everybody, let's just sing out as loud as we can, and we're going to sing number 147, and y'all just sing because that's a good one, and it's the best one I know this day, so let's just sing it out with great volume." And said the tenor of the service went on from that point and just deteriorated. The young preacher boy said, "Well, I kept thinking maybe when I get up to preach, I can redeem something of this worship experience." He got up to preach, and the choir director said, "Preacher, before you preach, I want to say something. I want to have prayer with you." And so they bowed, and the preacher said, or rather, the choir director said, "Lord, we thank you for this young preacher man, for calling him into the service. We know that he's your child. We know that you love him and he loves you and he loves us." And he just kept on praying about that young preacher boy and about how thankful they were for him and how good he was and what he meant to the congregation. And that young preacher boy said that the more that man prayed, the smaller I become and became. And he said, finally, he just prayed me so small it was all I could do to stand in the pulpit. He said, I mumbled and fumbled around a few words, pronounced benediction, and then we left. But he said, for some reason or other, they invited me to come back and preach the next Sunday. He said the next Sunday he had thought all week about what had happened and how arrogant he had been, how prideful, and said that when he got up to preach that Sunday morning, he said, turned to the choir director and he said, brother, said, you have a good one and I want to hear it. I turned to page 147. Let's sing all 7 verses because that's a wonderful old song. And he said he just really joined right in with the Spirit. And the Lord did bless. And he preached himself small, even as he had been prayed small. Every now and then the Lord has to pray us small. We get, as we used to say, too big for our britches. The Lord brings us down a peg or two. He has a way of humbling us with the most unlikely sources. Let's just pray that there will be someone out there who will pray us small when we get too full of ourselves. Thanks for watching Don Howell, today's Minute Message.